Hi everyone, welcome to the last evening of the 6th Annual Bel Air Film Festival. My name is Melody Storm. I'm the president of the festival. We have a great lineup for you tonight. An event hosted by Film Break, Ripple News, and Hurrian Law. Mitra Hurrian is our moderator, and these are our panelists. Please join us afterwards for food and drinks, and then we will be having an after party starting at 9 p.m. at the Thompson Hotel in Beverly Hills. Thank you.
Hi everyone, as Melody just said, I'm Mitra Hurrian. I'm an entertainment lawyer here in Los Angeles. I've been on the board of this film festival for 4 years now. It's been around, I think we're in the 6th year, so it's grown tremendously. And I've been doing a panel for the 4 years that I've been on the board. Excuse me. We've done different topics that we find relevant to the time that we're, the timing of the festival. We've done new models of film finance. We've done general shifts in distribution, and tonight we've chosen the topic of video on demand and navigating the new frontier of digital media. So we have with us tonight for our 4 esteemed panelists. Right here we have Justin Mashin. I forgot to ask you how I say that. Massian. Yes. Way cooler. He's the director of crowdfunding services at Film Break, where he helps filmmakers run their crowdfunding marketing campaigns. He's helped raise over $220,000 as a marketing director for Mark Zickery's Space Command on Kickstarter, which he'll tell us about later. That campaign reached its goal of $75,000 in just 3 days. He's also the founder of Jam Studios, a company that's dedicated to developing new properties across technology, entertainment, and design. Justin began his career working for a top industrial design firm, RKS Design, and later he attended Sotheby's Institute of Art, Full Sail University, and Columbia College of Hollywood, where he learned various aspects of media and entertainment. He recently spoke at Comic-Con and a number of other events. You may have caught him. Next we have Mark Hofstadter, who runs the film division at Indiegogo. Mark's originally from New York. He started his career at William Morris before it became William Morris.
Yeah, so not this building, the building down the street.
Yes. Before he served as a production executive on both the Universal Pictures and 20th Century Fox lots. Mm-hmm. He's helped oversee production on projects such as Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, A Single Man, and The Golden Compass. And before arriving at Indiegogo, Mark was an independent producer and collaborated with a number of other producers. Mitch Berman, 30-year industry veteran, one of the founding managing members of HBO. He's, and also VP of affiliate sales at E! Entertainment when E! was just a startup. His experience includes 6 startups and successful IPOs and the launch of digital consumer and business services such as social media, over-the-top video, mobile entertainment, video on demand, cable satellite, digital music, interactive TV, IPTV, games, and subscription-based entertainment projects. He also pioneered an early on-demand cloud-based internet streaming entertainment service that integrated movies and television and social media before Netflix, which he'll talk about a little bit later. And he now serves as CEO of Zen Digital Fund, which is an investment fund looking for media projects. I'll say digital entertainment games, digital media projects. Thank you all for being here. If you guys could join me in welcoming them. Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to give you a big apology later for that. Awful. Taylor McPartland is an incredible person.
That's all you need. You can stop there.
He got into film as an actor, writer, and producer extraordinaire. And from there, he developed the concept for Film Break, which is the company that I alluded to earlier. It's a data-driven marketing platform designed to streamline a film's marketing and distribution process. So his company provides data, including audience makeup and what your audience might be interested in. So for digital and VOD distribution. And so he's actually recently been featured in Forbes, Los Angeles Business Journal. Clap. We have to make up for my forgetting him. So now everyone could welcome all of our esteemed panelists, including Taylor. Okay, so I told you guys a little bit about the topic, and I want to first start by asking our panelists to tell us a little bit about the shift that you guys have observed maybe over the past 5 years, the transition from physical to digital, which I know has gone on longer than 5 years, but I think there's been a lot that's happened in the past 5 years. So maybe I'm looking at you, Mitch, because you can probably
I'm the oldest guy here. I know.
Exactly right, but you've seen that shift yourself. So if you could speak a little bit to what's been happening and the changes you've observed.
Yeah. One correction, by the way, at HBO, I was in the marketing group there. I was one of the original guys there. Oscar Wilde once wrote, experience is the name we give to our mistakes. Well, I got 30 years worth for all of you. So, if you've lived long enough, you see history repeat itself. The shift has been dramatic, and it's not going to stop. I mean, it's happening every day. I'm blessed to be with a lot of young entrepreneurs and doing what I do now. And in a way, I'm kind of reinventing myself in this new world that's now coming. I want to address what you were talking about physical and not even online, cloud-based. When I was trying to start a company prior to Hulu and there was no Hulu, Voodoo, or Doodoo yet. It was 2006, and I was in a VC meeting of Silicon Valley with some pretty prominent VCs sitting around the table with me. And I was talking about streaming video, TV, and movies in particular, to your home, to a television set. Now, in those days, everything was about streaming to your PC. And Juiced was up there. There's a bunch of other companies around, Movie Link, Cinema Now. There was a bunch, but they were all going to the PC. And I said, no. People want to watch this on a big screen. And this guy stood up, the prominent VC, and he adjusted his belt, looked around the room, and he said, pointed at me, he says, "You're going to blow up the internet." And that's a true story. And think of that. That's 2006. Here we are 7 years later, and look at where we are. And having a vision for seeing the future and believing in it is a blessing and a curse. And part of what I want to say to all of you today is, don't give up. Mitra heard me say this at USC on, I think it was Wednesday night, right?
Yeah.
Don't give up on your ideas. If you guys have ideas that you believe in, like Taylor with Film Break, don't let anybody stop you. If you really believe in what you're doing, you go for it. And because it's human nature for people to either be jealous or they don't understand, and they will stop you if they don't understand. They'll try to put you in a box. Don't let them do it. You hold on to your vision. Because when I was at HBO in the early 80s, my friends looked at me and said, "You're going to go work for who and do what? Pay TV? People don't pay for television. It's free. Are you crazy?" So, don't let people stop you if you have an idea. Because I know I see a lot of young faces in this room with a lot of dreams. Don't stop. Now let me go to this cloud real quick. So back in 2006, I had this idea that you could store your movies and TV shows in the cloud. I didn't call it the cloud because I didn't know what to call it. I was calling it a digital locker. And I was at Warner Brothers with Thomas Gawicki, who's a dear friend of mine, who to this day is the head of the digital side of Warner. And he was participating with me in this new company. And he had a problem with that. He said, "Mitch, I can't let you store our stuff in a digital locker." And I said, "Thomas, these are people who are doing electronic sell-through. They're going to own it. They're not going to have to own a physical copy. They just put this in their digital locker, and I'll have security." And he said, "We need something independent." And I said, "Well, fine. If you come up with it, I'll do it." And that ultimately became Ultraviolet, which all of you know. And that is being heavily pushed by Warner Brothers.
Does everyone know what ultraviolet is? Anyone not?
I don't.
Okay.
Ultraviolet is a cloud-based service to do exactly what I was talking about in 2006. Okay. You buy something, you own it, it's stored in the cloud with your name on it in a secure place. So they don't want you to buy physical media anymore because they understand that it's going away. So they're trying to push everybody. All the studios except Disney are into ultraviolet. Disney says, oh, we don't need that. We have our own called Key Chess, and we're bigger and better than all of you put together. So, that's what I'm saying is, there's a lot of egos, there's a lot of business behind all this, but effectively, that is where things are going. Ultraviolet, if you try and buy a Blu-ray disc today, you'll see that they're pushing you, even when you buy that disc, into an ultraviolet world. They want you to register. So the physical media is going away, and it's happening quicker than anyone can even imagine. If you just walk into Walmart or Target and the rest of the places, you'll see that floor space is shrinking, if you haven't seen it already.
Taylor and Justin, because you guys are part of a company that's really come out of this transition, are there things that you've observed that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would say, the big transition that I've seen, and Mitch touched on this briefly, but one of our main pillars of focus is this whole idea of marketing content early on. And now that everything is beginning to go digital, we're really at a place where anyone with an idea, as Mitch said, anyone with a dream, any filmmakers out there can begin to get legs under their idea and begin to push it forward without, socially, whether it be through Facebook or, any other outside Twitter, any other outside the box creative outlets, for virtually, very low cost. You don't need to buy big billboard space on Sunset Boulevard anymore just to have people understand your idea. You can build an audience much more organically with some of the tools that have come out in the last 5 or 10 years.
So what are some, because we're at a film festival, so I assume some people here are creating content. What are some of the challenges that content creators are facing in what has sort of been an uncertain time and is still rapidly changing?
The main thing is discoverability. Mm-hmm. Just getting people to know that you exist. There's so many. It's easy to create a home for yourself and to try to get people to pay attention, but there's still a lot of strategy in terms of actually driving eyeballs to your content. Whether that be a marketing campaign, whether that be a film, whether it be an Indiegogo. There's so many platforms out there, and there's so much content on all of them. The hardest part is just putting yourself a cut above the rest, and that's why I think Justin's fantastic at that. That's really where he excels, is how do you take this? He can talk about it.
Yeah,
how do you take
Justin,
this content and
Justin
get it out there?
assists with the marketing campaigns for crowdfunding campaigns. Mm-hmm. So you can, of course, speak to what works in terms of getting discovered, getting your content discovered.
So, first off, the challenges with digital versus physical that I've seen is that for every dollar you save on DVD packaging and Blu-ray discs and authoring and all that stuff, nowadays you're spending that same money on ancillary content, on making more and more content, on making side web series and so on and so forth. The more content you have, the more you can push it, the more you build loyalty to your brand, and even loyalty to the characters. With that said, another thing you miss with missing that DVD cover is you no longer have a physical tie to that project, to that film. And you're also missing the DVD menu, which I think is a big loss, like with Ultraviolet and so on. Yeah, I get a 2-hour video that I can watch, but it's perishable, more or less. It's a perishable commodity. Once you've watched it, you've seen it. The things that are cool about getting a DVD is the behind the scenes and that interactive piece that just goes and goes, and you leave it on your TV and you walk away and it's still playing. I think that's what we're missing, and I think that's what I suggest everyone includes in your films is think about the experience, the ancillary content, and how do you make that physical piece that's no longer there, how do you keep that loyalty to the brand?
And audience engagement is obviously a big part of that, which as you can both speak to, but Mark can definitely speak to some ways that you can engage your audience when you're running a crowdfunding campaign.
As Taylor was saying, there's just a lot of content out there. It's about finding your place, finding your voice, because with crowdfunding, people will sometimes put up a campaign and say, hey, okay, now contribute. And it's the same idea. I was at a meetup about a year ago, and I was talking to somebody who had just created a web series. And this is honestly what he had said to me, was that I put up my first episode of my web series on YouTube, and it's only got 7 views. Do you think I should tell more people? And the answer was, yeah. And then I saw it and it wasn't very good, but that's a whole other story. Even if he had told, I'm sure he knows 5 dozen people, at the very least, friends and family, he would have had, 10 times the number of views. And then they may not have seen episode 2, but that's a story. But so in terms of trying to make your place within the crowdfunding space or having your content seen, you really do have to have a marketing plan. How are you going to release content during the duration of your campaign? We've seen historically that if you're making an update to your campaign once every 5 days, you're going to make 218% more as a statistic within Indiegogo campaigns. So it's updating your crowd, and then also finding unique ways to update them. Even after the fact. James Franco ran a campaign on Indiegogo, and he was crowdfunding 3 films, all at a very sort of low budget. And the campaign ended months ago, but he's still sending out updates to his crowd. He showed a video where the people who had contributed to the Indiegogo campaign were now visiting the film sets. And he's sharing that with the people, obviously, who were there with him, but also to people who supported him in other ways. And so that way, that film and that campaign are staying fresh in his mind and fresh in yours as well. Your campaign doesn't begin and end within those 30 to 40 days. It goes way beyond that because, we're seeing people who are, again, coming up with those marketing plans. How are they going to release information during the time of their campaigns, but also how are they going to carry it over to the actual production of the film, and then how are they going to carry it over to the release and distribution. And that's a long time. Films take, a year or so to make, from start to finish. And that's a long time. You got to be keeping people engaged.
Yeah.
So again, let me apply a historical perspective on this because it's a very important topic, and it's one of my pet peeves. Again, if you've been around long enough, you see history repeat itself. Let me take you back to the early 80s, and I'm a young marketing executive at HBO, and I'm going to use your example in the same way, but in a historical perspective. I'm sitting at my desk. I'm the marketing guy. The cable operators are complaining to me, Mitch, we're losing subs, man. We got to get some more HBO subs on here. They're churning. They're disconnecting. Why were they disconnecting? Because in that world, in that day, I was getting pounded by 3 television networks, not 4, 3 broadcast networks, CBS, NBC, ABC. There wasn't a 4th in those days. And then I had some new basic services, CNN, USA Network, Lifetime. They were starting to, MTV, they were all coming. And then there was no internet. That was pretty much it. That was the world I was facing. Oh, and I had Showtime as my competitor, but really, they were the corner liquor store, and I was the big supermarket chain at HBO. So, I had to find a way to cut through the clutter, as we used to say. Cut through the clutter. Well, clutter's gotten a lot of big-time competition now. That's what you're facing. Mm-hmm. Because now you've got multiple basic networks, cable networks. You've got 4 broadcast networks. You've got pay-per-view, video on demand. Well, yeah, if you want to include that, yeah.
If you want to include that.
Yeah.
CW.
You say CW, I say Univision. So,
that's true.
So, half this country is going to be Hispanic by the next census. So that's why Univision's doing so well. The competition on all that's come on YouTube and Maker Studio and full screen and you have a human being sitting there, and the sociology of watching video, I'll say it that way, let's call it entertainment, watching entertainment, has been up to this point a one way. It's been, I program for you because you're passive and you want me to give you stuff and you get to choose what you want to watch and you get to sit back and change channels when you want to. This is now an interactive world. This generation is different. This generation wants to participate. This generation is very social. It's a different animal. But there's so much of it. I think you used a different term than I do. I call it curation. You know, like a librarian. You go into a library, there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of books. If you go to UCLA Library, how the hell would you find anything? Well, it's curated. You know, there's a little card catalog file. Remember all that when you used to go to school and do? Yeah. Well, it's the same thing now. Is there a TV guide for the internet? No. No, it's very difficult. And
That's a good idea, Mitch.
You want to go into business? So the thing is that it's a pet peeve of mine because, now going back to this, the heart of what you're saying, for all of you out there, if you think that you could take whatever you're producing and slap it up on YouTube and the internet and walk away, good luck to you. Because you can't do that. I know some of the broadcast networks think that they could take some of their shows and just put it up there in its current form and walk. No, it's got to be interactive. It has to be in real time. It has to be social for it to really have legs, in my opinion. And you have to have this influencer network get engaged to help tell people, particularly their followings, that this is on now, so they'll tune in. And that's the word, tune in. Mm-hmm. And you heard me tell this story. In November of 2011, I was called up to Mountain View by Google. As a friend of mine who's the head of product there asked me a favor. Could I come up for the day and tell them what I thought about their 95 channels they were launching, called Awesomeness TV. And I didn't have a clue, what it was or anything. And so I said, okay, sure. Well, I go in, and Meech just heard me tell the story. I sit down, and there's 8 guys around the table. Guys. Half of them were from India, and I'd say 3 or 4 from Asia, and one guy was white. Guys. And they have 95 channels. And they're engineers on top of it. Okay? So I sat there patiently and just, I'm not an asshole, and I thought, I'll just listen. And the old adage, I won't give you my advice, but I will give you my opinion. So after I saw it, the room was quiet, and they all looked at me and waited for what I was going to say, and I just said, guys, who here in the room knows how to do tune-in? It was quiet. Again, these are engineers. And I said, anybody here know how to do Don't Miss the Closer, only on TNT, tomorrow night at 8? And, of course, they're still stoic. They don't say anything. And I said, look, you guys are great at search, but there's nobody in this building who knows how to create an audience. You don't know how to do that around video. It's about building an audience, and doing that is a science. At HBO, when I was getting these phone calls, hey, we're going to disconnect, it's because people didn't know what was on. So we had to create our own program guide for $1 a month. We'd send you a program guide because the cable operators weren't promoting the shows. If you don't know what's on, you're going to disconnect for paying $9 a month. And then we had to get in original programming, and who knew what The Sopranos were? No one had ever heard of it before. We had to promote it. And that's what you're doing. It's a new world. And it's more difficult in your world than it was in mine. And mine was difficult. I was doing something like 60 million direct mail pieces a quarter, second only to Publishers Clearinghouse, telling you to call this number now, you can have HBO for 99 cents, and we'll give you a free basic installation and alarm clock radio if you call before December 31st. Call now. So, it's just history repeating itself. And so what you're doing and what you're trying to do is right on. And it's more difficult because there's a sea of stuff to wade through. It's almost impossible.
So, Taylor, how do you assist with some of these marketing campaigns? Justin. I'm doing an awful job tonight. Justin.
Yes. Also known as Taylor.
Okay, yes. We have 2 Taylors now, so that should make up for the forgetting to introduce you.
Basically, my job starts with figuring out what makes your project different, what makes your project special. How can we stand out amongst all the rest of the garbage? Okay. Assuming that you do have something special, how do we exploit that? How do we do things that the market hasn't seen before? These are the things that I'm always thinking about. Because it's no longer good enough to be something that looks good amongst the crowd. You have to stand out and stand out above or beyond the crowd, outside the box, so to speak. So that's what I'm always thinking about.
So how do you do that?
How do you do that? So let's say, first of all, as a filmmaker, you have to start from the beginning. When I have some properties of my own, and when I approach the writing of it, I'm thinking about the marketing and the campaign behind it. So, for instance, I'm working on a fight film, and it's basically like wrestling meets Mortal Kombat. And the thing is that for me, how do I market this? How do I make more than just a 2-hour film that fits on a rectangle? So the idea is all the promotional content. Well, there's multiple wrestlers in this film. Each wrestler can do promos like they do in wrestling, talking crap about the other guy, and that creates an audience behind them.
Right.
So finding different ways to market and build the story of your film alongside that 2-hour piece that's going to go in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
That's an example. So starting from the beginning, building a brand that can have outside pieces help to tell the story. That's
So
one way.
Mark, you and I learned something very interesting from you. So most marketing campaigns have a lead time up until the launch or the release. And what you mentioned is that a lot of times people throw it up there and don't really do the lead time, right? So talk about some of the things that that people who are running campaigns can do.
Well, I'll give you an example. Talking about prior to the launch of the campaign. Yeah. So there's a campaign launching this week. It's called Creeps. It's written and to be directed by a filmmaker named Guinevere Turner. Guinevere Turner has been a huge voice in the independent film world for the last 20 years, mainly as a screenwriter. This is her feature debut. She wrote American Psycho. She wrote Notorious Betty Page. Her first film was a film called Go Fish, which came out in the early 90s. And, when I first connected with her, she was thinking about launching a crowdfunding campaign. And this is about a month or so ago that we got together. But she had been thinking about a crowdfunding campaign since May. And so that's a very long lead time, figuring out what is her media plan, what is her pitch video going to be. Her pitch video, the campaign's going live tomorrow, and it's actually kind of inventive. She uses puppets in it. It's really cute and funny, and it comes across in a very sincere and humorous way. But during the course of the campaign, she's got a lot of events scheduled. She has a Reddit AMA that she's going to do. She has a radio interview that she's going to do. And it's taking the time in advance of the campaign launch to set these things up, to reach out to a certain contact and say, if you have to do friends of friends of friends to get to that one piece of media, that one media outlet that's going to be significant enough to help drive the campaign. There are a lot of websites out there, a lot of film websites out there, music, what have you, and it's not just about being able to access one; it's being able to access the right one. The one other thing that people forget is that, you have some. I had a campaign recently who told me that someone who's involved with their campaign has 200,000 Twitter followers, and they were going to tweet out that the campaign was live, and that translated into about 2 contributions.
Wow.
Because we see that only 15% of the people within a social media circle actually see what you're tweeting or Facebooking, because either people aren't looking at their phones at the right time, or they have so many friends or follow so many Twitter feeds that it's noise. It's finding, they can't even find their way to build their own content.
It's the new form of junk mail.
Exactly. And so don't bet that high number of followers is going to yield something. Now, if you have 10 million followers on Twitter, that's a little bit of a different story. You're going to get a significant return, but it's still not going to be as significant as you think it will be. So you have to think about not just that one thing to get your message out, but those 10 things. And getting those 10 things lined up and ready isn't going to be done in the course of a week or in the course of a day. So the great thing about Indiegogo is that you can launch. We have an application process. We have anything from anywhere. You can have your campaign up tonight if you wanted to, but I don't recommend it because you got to know what you're going to be doing for those 30 to 40 days. Because you can get a couple of great friends or family members to drop you a few contributions on your first or second day, but you've got 28 to 38 more days. So figure out how you're going to fill that time.
Right. So what are some? Has anyone here ran a crowdfunding campaign? One, two. Oh, okay, good amount. So what are some? Actually, Stu, what did you ask for? And first of all, did the film get made?
It did, yeah.
Okay, cool. So how much did you ask for, and what did you get?
Well, it was a small. I mean, it wasn't like how it was done now because I didn't have this format. It was just sort of like, hey, I want to shoot a small movie and I want to raise around this amount of money, and I raised around that amount of money, and that was it. And there was no incentives, and there was no gifts, and there wasn't any of that. It was just sort of like, please help me make my dream. That was it.
It's really interesting, though, how many people will contribute to that, really outside of the perks, because there's people who may not care about a T-shirt or something, a CD or something like that. But Mark, you and I had talked about the lead time is obviously something that's important. The videos, usually the successful campaigns have some sort of video. It sounds like that worked for you.
We see is a 114% greater raise with people that have pitch videos.
Right.
Because as Justin and I were talking earlier, some people, that's the first thing they see. They see a video. They don't care about the pitch text. They just want to see what the video says. Then they'll look at the perks and they'll contribute.
Right.
Conversely, there are some other people who they want to read more. They want to know a bit more in depth, and they'll read the pitch text. But the videos are always key.
So, the reason I asked you I asked you how much money you asked for and what you raised is because I learned something new when you and I were talking. A lot of people try to get as much money as they can get, so they set the bar high. But Mitch has actually, in his experience, Mark, in his experience, has so bad, actually recommends that you ask for less money because you'll actually end up exceeding the amount that you ask for. So that was an interesting point.
I mean, the idea that if a movie costs $1 million, that you should ask for $1 million. You have to look at the campaigns in the world of crowdfunding, be it film or in technologies, that have raised $1 million. And right now, they're still on the smaller side. They're growing as the campaigns, thanks to the guys at Funbreak and other companies, they're becoming much more complex and intelligent in terms of how they're being marketed. But, if you're trying to raise $1 million and you have 200 friends on Facebook and you have no Twitter feed, it's just not going to happen. You may have a great product or a great film to make, but start in small amounts. You can always do a stretch goal. You can always come back for more. There's a film that came out on Friday called Zero Charisma. It was in theaters and on demand. And they did 2 crowdfunding campaigns with us. They raised about $50,000 in total. Film was like $100-something thousand, sort of in the vein of Napoleon Dynamite, but with D&D. And I think the first raise was $35 on a $20,000 goal, and they raised another $15,000 or so on the second raise. And they were able to show that progression to the crowd, that, hey, we got this done. Now let's go back and say, we're still not done with the movie. Can you give a little bit more? And there are people who will continue to contribute. And you'll also be able to get people who weren't aware of the first campaign. They'll be able to contribute this time around. And so going back again is not a bad thing to do. It's something that people are willing to still contribute towards. There should be, that's probably it. Being strategic about how you're campaigning, that's the best way to do it.
So, what I'm hearing is obviously the audience engagement is a huge part, whether it's the videos or the updates or the perks. How important are the perks?
Perks are huge. You gotta have about 10 of them. I mean, any more than 5 is a great start, but roughly 10 perks are a great number to have. The great thing about Indiegogo is that we have a couple options with our perks. You can have a featured perk that sort of sits at the top of the page. It's almost like a blue light special. What is that special perk for a limited time? And you can swap perks out in and out during the course of the campaign. So if you see something that is not being that successful, you can get rid of it and throw in a new idea. And so that's the great thing about Indiegogo and the internet as a whole, particularly YouTube, that it's that interactivity with the crowd, with your audience. You know what they're responding to, you know what they're not. But that simple idea of doing a T-shirt or doing a DVD is not the best idea because everybody's done it.
Mm-hmm.
So the more inventive you can be, the better. There was a campaign on the music side. Unfortunately, no one took advantage of this perk, but there was a band whose name I'm forgetting at the moment, but they had a perk that for $5,000, if you purchased the perk, that the lead singer of the band would have your initials tattooed on his ass. Yeah, you get. There were two.
I wonder why nobody took advantage of
yeah.
that.
And there were two of those that you could claim.
Wow.
But they were ridiculous.
One on each butt cheek. Right?
Yeah. So it was ridiculous, but it was enough of a conversation starter that people were talking about it. So whether it's that or having those the wrestlers doing the individual promotional videos, finding ways, doing Vine videos and integrating that. It's like the more you can do, the more inventive you can be. Don't just sort of do it by the book, because it's the junk mail method. It's like, how is that one piece of junk mail going to stand out and show you that it's actually not junk mail? It's that bill that you got to pay. So it may say final notice on it. But whatever you can do, make that happen, and you'll see a lot more success.
So in the world I move in, what Mark's alluding to is a definition of that I use for myself when a company comes to me and says, "Hey, Mitch, would you take a look at our business model? Take a look at what we're doing and tell us what you think." What I did is, for myself, over the course of several years, I've developed what I call my 7 principles. I won't get into all of them now, but there are 3 in particular that Mark's alluding to that are really important, and they're my highlight of the 7. Influence, sharing, and reward. If you incorporate influence, sharing, and reward into your business, if you integrate that into your business model and how you're conducting your business, then I believe you'll be successful. And that's effectively what you're alluding to. And there's different forms of reward. There's the reward that's monetary, T-shirts and getting a chance to go to the premiere with the stars and all that stuff. That's one form of reward. But there's another form of reward. When I influence my friend to play a game with me that my friend did not know about, and my friend is happy because he's playing live with me and enjoying himself, it's a dual reward. He's happy, I'm happy because I made him happy. It's another form of reward. It's a social reward. It's a psychological reward. So, reward is not always some intrinsic cash deal or some product that they put in your hand. Keep that in mind as you do what you do. And yes, you have to stand out. This is no different than all throughout the course of time when you have a product, whatever the product is. Why is the consumer going to choose you? What is it that you're doing, that you're delivering that's better? You also said something else that's really important, Mark. You talked about brand. Brand is everything. Everybody in this room is a brand. And people don't think about it that way. But each one of you have your own brand and what you stand for. What's your intrinsic value to others? Are you a truthful person? Are you somebody with integrity? What do you stand for? Amongst your friends, you're a brand. Everybody knows what you stand for, at least those who know you. And so you take that to this new business world, in the YouTubes of the world, the ability to reach out to communities of people that are interactive now. It's not about junk mail, some piece of mail that you get in your mailbox you just easily toss. Now you're bombarded in all fronts: newspaper, television, radio, internet. I mean, there's just so much bombardment going on. The same principle applies. If it's important to you, if it's something that you care about, it's not junk. And that's something that is a very important creative, scientific, there's a creative, scientific way of doing it in this new world that is now being formulated. There are those out in front taking a lead in doing that. Some are using influencer networks to do it. There's a company sitting in this room that I help from time to time called 3 Black Dot. And they're way out in front. Ex-Machinima guys who built that network of influencers. Hundreds of 20, 30 million people watching 2 kids playing live video games. Who knew? But there's this a powerful community of people that the internet has now empowered, and there are tools that you have as filmmakers, as video producers now, all of you sitting in this room, at this moment in time that did not exist before. This is one of the best times in history for all of you to go do what you do. This didn't exist before. It's different. Like Mark's saying, you can go and create these programs, these marketing programs, to reach out to people to raise money to go feed you so that you can produce your dream. You couldn't do that before. So, whatever challenges you hear from all of us up here today, the bottom line is you couldn't be alive at a better time in history to do what you're trying to do.
Taylor, I know you had something to add.
That's tough to follow up. That was nice.
Okay. But I want you to talk a little bit about data and what kind of data you provide.
Yeah, I just want to jump on top of the brand topic here for 1 second. I think that's an incredibly valuable takeaway for today. One of the things that we do at Film Break when we jump on an initial call with the filmmakers who are looking for crowdfunding consulting or looking for social media management for their projects is we ask them, what are you trying to get out of this? Who do you have attached to this project? What are some of the themes of your project? And I think as soon as you can identify why you're doing what you're doing, who it matters to, and what groups fall into that category, then you're well on your way to overcoming this discoverability issue, because you have, maybe they're nonprofits, maybe they're other companies, other sponsors. You can get on the phone, you can start targeting these people and making yourself known to them, opening up these doors, and you never really know where that might be able to lead you as you try to drive them back to your film that might be going through production, might be completed, might be trying to do crowdfunding, any of the above.
Yeah, and what Taylor's alluding to, I'm smiling because I'm rewinding again my old videotape in my mind. In the 80s and in the early 90s, I was doing what used to be called Geographic Information System Targeting, GIS. It was new. It was all done at Bradstreet and Equifax, Claritas, Donnelly. All these big companies were taking all of you in the United States and dividing you up into social categories: yuppies, porch swings and apple pie, furs and patios. And there was economic categories and social categories that were appended to each of these in the form of data. Here we haven't talked about big data yet, but that's what everyone's alluding to. So back in those days, I was a genius because I could target a zip code. Are you kidding me? 25,000 people are all alike? Because that's on average in the United States in those days, that's how many people were actually in a given zip code on average again. 25,000. So to say that everybody is like you in that entire zip code, because the idea was birds of a feather flock together, which is true if you think of your street that you live on today. I would almost guarantee you that 6 out of the 10 households corner to corner look like you. There are probably some people who are older, maybe a little younger, but mostly geriatric like me, still in that neighborhood. They haven't moved yet. But what I'm saying is now what happened with me is zip codes got broken down to zip plus 4s. That's the code that the Postal Service uses to deliver mail on a half side of a street. So you can actually target today mail by zip plus 4. And that's what I was doing in like 1992, 1993. And boy, I tell you, I was this innovative guy. Oh my goodness. Targeting a half side of a street. Guess what you can do today? I mean, it's incredible. And these guys are all trying to do it. You can target a person in real time. And that is a scary thing. That's why you hear all the privacy concerns about Google and Yahoo and the rest of them. Because you can target not just a household, a person in real time. Not a zip plus 4 or a whole zip code. And that's the power of the world we live in today. And it's quite a responsibility to keep in mind that, individual rights and privacy is important. All of us, well, I shouldn't say all of us, some of us hold that dearer than others.
Justin, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to add on to the branding portion. Something I've seen a lot is that people with fantastic projects will come to me and they'll show me their project and it has a terrible logo or a terrible poster art. You know, if you want to be a filmmaker in Hollywood, first of all, number one rule is that people don't like to read. So how do your visuals stand out and show that what you're making is of quality? Your logo, your posters, and so on. It needs to look like something you'd see in a movie theater or that's going to stand out on Netflix. Everything is visual these days. So if your stuff doesn't look good, you know, go make it look good and come back, or hire us to make it look good. But don't show people your project without it looking sexy and like it belongs in a movie theater or on the Netflix browser.
Taylor, can you talk a little bit about some of the trends you've noticed since you're actually looking at data? Can you talk a little bit about what works and what doesn't work?
Yeah, I mean, the type of data that... So basically, just to kind of take a step back and tell everyone what Film Break is, we're a data-driven marketing platform. So everyone can put a project, you can go put a project up on Film Break today and begin to drive fans to your page, engage fans on your page, and then our job is in real time to provide you with demographic data and a taste profile of your audience. So kind of touching on the branding topic and also big data, we're able to kind of help you along to determine what the themes of your audience might be, even if you don't know going in. So you can post a project up, and one of the themes that we're seeing is very early on, even within the first 50 fans, 100 fans that are engaging with a project, you can already begin to see pretty detailed and pretty reliable interests of those people that relate back to that film. And then it's the filmmaker's job then to say, okay, so now that I know exactly my fans of this project like these 10 top things, whether it might be apple pie or specific politicians or WME or whatever the case might be. And my fans also like these 10 TV shows and these 10 favorite movies. I can then take that information and I can, if I have a small budget, I can do a Facebook ad campaign and really target that specific audience. If I have a bigger budget and I know what TV shows my fans are interested in, I can, partner up there or do ad buys or whatever the case might be. But I think as far as trends go, it really just comes down to being able, surprisingly early, to see these profiles of themes and interests of audiences around projects.
Mm-hmm. And then shifting your marketing campaign from there.
Yeah.
Where do you guys see things headed? What are we moving towards in the future? I mean, I have my theory. I think there's going to be a big Time Warner equivalent coming in and gobbling everyone up, and all the content's going to come from one place or two places, and we're going to be paying $200 a month again.
Well, I don't know about that, but I definitely do think that. No, I'm not discounting what you said. I do think there will be a rate of attrition. I think we are seeing mergers. Break Media and Alloy Digital, they merged, or in the process of merging. Maker and Blip, they're merging. So Blip and Maker Studios, they just merged. Break Media and Alloy Digital, they're in the process of merging or announced their merger. And so we are seeing a rate of attrition where, we have a large number of these organizations, distribution companies, as well as, we've got our iTunes, we've got our Roku boxes, our Apple TV, our Roku boxes, our Netflixes. I mean, I personally don't think that there's going to be another Netflix that will be able to overcome them. But we are going to see a drawing back of the number of companies that are out there. Maybe it's not at the point where they're going to be able to gouge us again, but definitely to the point where it's not going to just be as cluttered as it is.
And I would concur with Mark because, and Mitra, you and I have talked about this before, there's so much distribution. It's like a giant quilt of stuff now. It's so all over the place. You have, let's just go through this real quick. You have the consumer electronics industry, LG, Samsung, Panasonic, Vizio, who are creating their own. They're talking about creating their own original programs for their smart TVs. I saw a number. I think, if I recall this right, 300 million smart TVs out there by 2017. If I saw it right, this just came out like a week ago, where it's all about applications now on the smart TVs themselves. Then you have the retailers. Walmart's got its own service. Target announced its own service 2 weeks ago. The retailers and the consumer electronic guys have always been hand in glove. Not anymore, because the guys who run the consumer electronics world and the retail world, they don't want to just sell you a hunk of iron or some kind of electronics and then you go away. They want to have a relationship with you now. They get it. And so they're competing with each other because they're both doing the same thing. And then there's the application guys out there, Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu Plus, who are charging a subscription fee. Amazon Prime is not, but Netflix and Hulu Plus is. And they want you. And some are a one-dimensional business model like Netflix. Don't even get me started on that one. For $8 a month, all you can eat, but they don't have all the latest films streaming to you. You have to get their hard DVD to get those, because the business model pisses off Hollywood, who says, you're devaluing our product for $8 a month. We're going to give you all our movies? No way. You can have our library. And Reed Hastings is writing big fat checks, and he figured it out. Holy hell. I can't get enough subscribers if I just do that. I better create original programming. And so what did he do? He did House of Cards for $100 million. $8 a month, $100 million. Oh, you don't have to be a math genius to figure out that long term, that don't work. So he's going to have to raise prices, and he will eventually. HBO's done that. HBO, he's copying that model. I was there. I had a rate card. If you were TCI in those days with 23 million subscribers around the United States, I would go to one of your cable systems. I'd say, please put me on. I'm going to give you HBO and Cinemax. If you put me on, I'll give you the rate of $3 per sub per month. That was our rate card. Because you're a TCI system here in Tupelo, Mississippi, and only have 20,000 subs, you're still a part of the greater parent, and we cut a deal with your parent, so you get $3 a month. Then I go knocking on the door of Buckeye Cablevision in the middle of Arizona that's got one cable system, not hundreds. And you know what their rate was? $6.75 per sub per month. What happened? DirecTV and Dish Network appeared. And they said to the marketplace, hey, hate your cable operator because they're price gouging you? Well, come on over here, because we're only going to charge you $9 a month instead of the $14 a month that they're marking up their $6.75 per month out in these rural areas. Come over to us. It was a war, and it's still going on. And the thing is, it's all about these business models that have been entrenched and how you have to raise a lot of cash in order to support a subscription model only, which is why Hulu is doing subscription and advertising on their Hulu Plus service. They have a dual revenue stream. They have to, because it costs a lot of money to create content, as you guys know. So anyway, this world is, you got consumer electronics guys, you got retailers, you got the over-the-top OTT guys like Amazon and Hulu and Netflix. Then you got pay-per-view from the cable operators, and you have pay-per-view from the satellite operators. I mean, it's a quilt, it's patchwork. I just don't see one entity coming out. I mean, Google has actually tried, and they've been blocked by Hollywood from getting content. And let's not forget, Intel's out there with their service thinking that they could get all the content. And, the guy who runs that is actually an acquaintance of mine, and I warned him 3 years ago when this was starting. He thought he could just write a check, and Hollywood give him all their stuff with a smile. Guess what? He got blocked, and now they're in trouble, as you've been reading. So, everybody has this idea about doing over the top and being an application on a TV set and all. It's hard stuff if the business model don't work. If you come to me as Zen Digital to come talk to me about, so hey, it sounds like a great idea. What's your business model? And I already know in my mind, I can hear it coming. Advertising. Everybody, yeah, they're going to get their money from advertising. Well, there's only so much of the pie that you can cut up to create an advertising-only model. So I suggest you have dual, triple, quadruple revenue streams of some form.
Dustin?
Yeah, so I had a meeting maybe 6 or 8 months ago at X-Band. They're the guys who make the 3D glasses for theaters. And one thing they told me, he goes, there's only one reason why 3D works. The only reason why 3D works is because the theaters can make more money, and because people make more money. So at the end of the day, at least on the commercial side and on the big boy side, it's all about what's going to drive more money to them. However, on the other hand, we've got the independents and the Indiegogos and the Kickstarters and the little people coming up out of nowhere. And I think that's where you're going to see things just start to change. One of the things that I've seen as a trend is for every dollar you save on DVDs and on film reels, you're spending it on extra content. Another trend that I'm starting to see is people are using the remote control a lot more. Okay? Just like your phone, the best way to save battery on your phone is you put it down on the table, but no one will do it. And I think that's going to happen with the remote control a lot sooner. So being more interactive and being prepared for that. We're not there yet, but it's going to take the right entrepreneur to come up and say, hey, the internet is connected to TVs. Why can't everyone just make a website that is their DVD menu that distributes their content? And all of a sudden we go from everyone needing DirecTV to everyone needing a Google-like system that you can look at different DVD menus, different stations, and it's all public. So I think you're going to see the TV become a lot more interactive. I think you're going to see it becoming a lot more like building a website, building a station or a DVD menu for your TV. And I think that's a great way that people will be able to take advantage of the fact that you're no longer giving DVD boxes, but you are giving an experience through your television. And
Right.
it's an experience that you can control as a filmmaker.
Right, and that's definitely been huge, is that experience.
Mm-hmm.
I have one last question. I did this at the last panel, and I liked it. So, a book that the audience should read, and a piece of advice.
So for me, I think everyone should read about something called growth hacking. If you're interested in building audiences, building user growth, no one's written it yet for film, something we probably should do. But look up growth hacking, books on growth hacking. I think it's the most phenomenal, amazing new way to really market anything.
Okay.
What was the other question?
Advice.
Advice? Think outside the box. Make sure your stuff doesn't look like shit.
Always good advice.
The book that I recommend is called Crowdfunding for Filmmakers. It's by an actual colleague of mine before he actually started working for Indiegogo. Sure, no problem. The book I recommend is called Crowdfunding for Filmmakers.
Crowdfunding for filmmakers.
It's by John Trigonis, Trigonis. And basically it's a soup nuts explanation of the crowdfunding process and how to optimize your campaign. In regards to advice, as sort of Mitch was sort of saying earlier, take advantage of what's in front of you. When I was a student filmmaker, none of this existed. I have friends who created films, several years back. A lot of the options they had in front of them weren't any good, and their films weren't released. I think what we're seeing now is, if you go to a major film festival, whether it be Sundance or any of the festival of the like, back in the day, a lot of films didn't have the opportunity for distribution, and they would sit on a shelf and never get seen by an audience. Now there's no reason to not have your film seen. So take advantage of what's in front of you.
Okay, Mitch?
Why bad things happen to good people? No, really. As I said the last time, there was a book written in the late 80s that I read, and it's unbelievable if you go back and read this book now, knowing now all that's happened. This gentleman is definitely a seer. His name is Nicholas Negroponte. I believe he's still a professor at Harvard. He wrote a book called Being Digital. It's fantastic. It's my Bible, and in it, all he talks about over and over and over again, if you read it, you'll see, monetizing communities of people. Monetizing communities of people. So I highly recommend that. In terms of advice, I'd say follow your heart. And follow your instinct. It's not wrong. Whenever I've not followed my instinct, I've paid a big price for it. You know when it's the right thing to do, despite what people tell you. And it's a difference between being stubborn and following your heart. So I'd say, in my life, that's the best thing I could give you.
Taylor?
As far as books go, I would say The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. It's a really good read. It's all about how to, how successful and big trends get started, and what you can do to sway the masses. What are some strategies to sway the masses in your direction? All of his books are really good. As far as advice go, I would say just be meeting people. Constantly be out there, just meeting people. Not necessarily in a networking, card passing kind of way, but just be out talking to people everywhere you go. Just, you never know. Mitch and I were kind of talking about this. You never know who you might meet and who they might know and what they might be doing. It's been really valuable for us in terms of Film Break, getting off the ground as first-time entrepreneurs, and just being able to leverage our own networks and who they might know is really the best way to make people know, hear about what you're doing and want to be able to contribute to it.
Also, the exchange of ideas and information is important. We'll take a few questions from the audience if anyone has any. Yes?
I have a question. There's been a lot of emphasis on...
Just a little louder, please.
There's been a lot of emphasis on all these things available now in terms of promoting your product. If you create content, whether it be music or films or writing or whatever it is, in the midst of doing that, let's say you have something that people do respond to, and you're getting a lot of views or a lot of hits and so forth, how do you also still have that become beneficial in terms of preserving your content and then ultimately even monetizing it? Obviously, I have a lot of reading to do, but that's always been something in the back of my head. We had a film screen today, and it's exciting to have people enjoy it, but then what? What are the variables then to elicit a life for that? Life for that time that you put into it. It's obviously very time and energy consumptive.
Who wants to take that?
Sure. Yeah, I think that is extremely hard if you're not either Kevin Smith or anyone above Kevin Smith as far as your level at where you are as a filmmaker. The blockbusters, there's only 20 movies in a theater at any given time as far as the AMCs and the Regal theaters, and then you've got however many independent films. As soon as you get below that and below the cult films, it's extremely hard. As a filmmaker, a lot of filmmakers are going to make movies that there's not a huge audience for, right? The question is how do you figure out what is your niche? How do you figure out who your audience is? How do you capture who they are? And once you've built that list, and once you know who they are, then how do you not just preserve your content, but how do you build around that and add to it, I would say. Like I said before, a 2-hour rectangle film might not be enough anymore. And I think as filmmakers, we also have to realize what is marketable and what's not. And those $1 million budget films, do they really, truly have a chance of making money? And just to add to that, sitting on panels and being pitched, one of the number one things that filmmakers forget to tell me is how that movie's going to make money. They tell me who's involved, they tell me how great it is, how wonderful the story is. They forget to say how it's going to make money. And unfortunately, we're in capitalism. So.
Any other questions? Back there.
What's the biggest lesson you didn't expect to learn? Want to leave that to however you interpret.
What's the biggest lesson you didn't expect to learn?
I got to think about that one for a second.
Mitch, you got this.
I want to hear what Mitch
not
has to say.
again.
You can give a different one.
He got me Wednesday night, right? Same dude, right?
But there's got to be another lesson in there. In all your
I gave my
decades,
lesson
Mitch.
Wednesday. I'm all out of lessons. I'm still learning mine.
Taylor's got one. You're off the hook. Justin's got one. Wow.
One of the biggest lessons that I didn't expect to learn was the value of press, as well as the unvalue of press. So, on one hand, I did a panel, and between us, we had raised $1 million through crowdfunding. And each one of us were amazed on some articles would bring in 10, 20, 30 grand. Each one of us that had happened to. And we were able to track that back from just a single article. Maybe it's trekmovie.com because you're doing a Star Trek sci-fi project. Or maybe it's slashdot.com because you did a really good, interaction with the audience. Whatever it was, we were all surprised on how press drove in the money. On the other hand, especially more recently, I'm also surprised on how little press actually drives in money. So, you could get a great article on IndieWire that brings in one pledge maybe less, or one sale. So as much as press is helpful, it's very hard to bank on it as far as actually bringing in, the dollars.
All right, Mitra, because of you, I'll give one more.
Thank you.
All right. Same thing he got me last time. You're going to get me again. All right, so the one thing I didn't expect is, and again, this is more of a spiritual answer, I think. I didn't realize the power of the individual inside of an organization. I was one person inside of HBO. I was the first person at my age to do a retail tie-in campaign with Bond supermarkets. Everybody told me it had never been done before, you couldn't do it, and I did it. It was very successful. I was the first person to do bilingual mail in Southern California to get people to subscribe to HBO. Everybody told me, quote unquote, this is a true story, Mexicans don't watch TV. Mitch, what are you trying to do? No, this is all, corporate Harvard, Yale guys in New York City. So, and this is 1986. So I did it. Hotel Motel. I was standing in a hotel in Palm Springs. The manager asked me, I happened to be there on business, and the manager asked me if he could have HBO in the hotel. I said, I don't know. And I thought about it, and I said, why not? And I went to my cable operator buddy, and I talked to him, and I said, will you feed him if I open that door? There was no such thing in 1985. HBO is a hotel, motel. The power of an individual to make a difference is unbelievable if you follow through. And that was unexpected for me. I had no idea. I didn't come into that company saying I was going to do those things. They appeared. An opportunity appeared in front of me. It was unexpected. Some people can do something about it. Some people aren't afraid. Some people will take a step forward. Which one of you, and my grandmother used to say to me, there are 3 kinds of people you're going to meet in your life, Mitch. Those people that make things happen, those people that watch things happen, and then there are those that ask, what happened? Which one are you?
Well, I think that's a good place to stop. What do you guys think? Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for filling the room.
I'm sure.
Incredible.
Yeah.